David Lynch once said, "I don't know why people expect art to make sense. They accept the fact that life doesn't make sense." And I think this should be your mindset going into anything Lynch has ever created, because if you are thinking you're gonna watch something that would hand you answers and get out of it with total understanding, then you're gonna be totally thrown off. And I think Twin Peaks is the biggest indication to that. Twin Peaks has been in my watch list since middle school, I think, and now I'm 26, and I think it's crazy how long it took me to finally watch it. But it always seemed this really big thing is gonna change me and change how I view things. And when you think of Twin Peaks, it did change TV and what's to come. I stayed up till 6 a.m. last night to finish it, and after I couldn't go to sleep, I just kept thinking of David Lynch, how him and Mark Frost talked networks to actually air that. I think this is the craziest thing to me, because also at the time TV was very safe and was such a crazy idea that doesn't have a whole conclusion to it. And I thought about how no one should try to explain David Lynch, especially with a show as layered and expansive as this one. Going into an amount of details would be pointless. It's a treasure trove of symbolism and atmosphere and character building. Everything feels organic and precise, and the moment of horror are truly brilliant. And I just want to say from the beginning, that's not what I'm doing in this video. I'm not trying to explain David Lynch, especially Twin Peaks, and not from my first watch, and honestly I don't think from my second or even third. To me, the way I think of Twin Peaks, I rather think of it as a piece of clay. You can make it your own, you can make your own conclusion to the whole thing, and to me, I just like that. I like this idea, and I do love so much the fact that this is one of the most overwhelmingly sad piece of media, but still defined as a comfort food for all of us. I think that says a lot. Twin Peaks premiered in 1990 for 2 seasons until cancellation in 1991, but of course then returned in 2017 for a third and final season. I'm gonna try to say what Twin Peaks is about. This is like the simplest way I'm gonna be able to do it. It's initially about the murder of homecoming queen Laura Palmer, and after she is found dead and Special Agent Dale Cooper arrives to town to solve the case, they discover so many crazy shit that happened in the quiet suburb town that's Twin Peaks. It's one of the most empathetic work of art I've ever experienced. It focuses on the grief and emotional responses of everyone who knew Laura. Their combined grief and brief connection over the death of someone they cared about is tragically beautiful and utterly devastating. The little things are what the people who loved her remember: the sound of her feet when she was wandering around, and the feeling she provided every room was disappearing. The stairs in her home just doesn't seem the same anymore. I don't think there is nothing else that I've ever watched in my life that was able to have so many absurd and ridiculous moments and characters yet simultaneously explore darkness and pain that comes along with humanity and existence. And you can tell that from the pilot. It's one of the best pilot I've ever seen in my life, and it's so different from anything I've seen from a TV show, because I think the pilot's more, people really take it as, you know, a world building and tell you what's to come, which Twin Peaks, it's never like that. You never know what's to come. But this was more of like an introduction to this town. It was more of a feeling. It wasn't something that's like, here is what you're gonna expect out of this show. It's one of my favorite things, and I loved every introduction to characters. The amount of goofiness that we get with Lucy explaining which phone she's transferring the call to. Yet within about 10 minutes of that, we also get the anguished scream of Grace Zabriskie as she realizes her daughter is dead. Twin Peaks is able to effortlessly balance these types of extremes in a way that not only works but feels entirely unique and simply fascinating to watch. There is so much humor and lightness in the show, especially after the initial introduction of Goop, but again, it's a balance against a backdrop of pain and loss. As much as there are funny moments, but a continuous sense of worry dominates, one that keeps me completely captivated from the start to finish, with no idea to what to expect around every corner, especially given how much the writing differs from episode to episode. The world building is chilling, and it takes on a whole other level when the weird unexplained frames are introduced. There is so much of Twin Peaks that I actually think that shouldn't work out, but they do work out, and a big reason for that are for David Lynch. And I don't want to take anything away from Mark Frost, because I think he did such an incredible job, and Twin Peaks would have been the same without him, of course. But Lynch's understanding to how to tell the story is what helped to make it, and you can tell with the episodes that he didn't direct, it just didn't feel the same. The way he looked at the world was unique and wholly original. While his films often explores many of the dark corners of existence, they were always painted with compassion and empathy. He could create genuine terror and horror and then make you laugh hysterically for 5 minutes later. Perhaps none of his work exemplified that better than Twin Peaks. The pure directional vision is uncompromising for the first season and for so many moments throughout the second season, and it brings a sense of escapism and startling clarity that is hard to find anymore. Even in the realm of cinema, the fact that the show from the early 90s still managed to give me nightmares is an example of how vitality and everlasting impression of Twin Peaks. I want to talk about the characters because it's honestly might be the best part about the show, and how that was a big part for me to love Twin Peaks as much as I do. Even with how ridiculous the characters can be, you do really love them, and I think that was one of the things I struggled with The Return, or the character that we lost. Every character is so unique and special with their quirks. It made them all very different from each other, and I think that's such a great word because there's too many characters, and to make each one of them so crazy and unique in its own way, they don't even blend for 1 second. You can't help but love them, and I think a big reason for that is the many scenes that we were giving. Many of those scenes weren't even necessary for the plot, but the time we spent with the characters even doing nothing made them feel real. And some characters weren't important to the main story, but because they were so strange, it was just fun hanging out with them. And a lot of things honestly should be boring, but they're not, because you were drawn into their lives. And one of my favorites is the log lady. She was way too weird, but also very serious, that you cannot help but love her. And I think Harry and Cooper are now one of my favorites, duo on TV. And speaking of Cooper, honestly, I think he is my favorite character has ever been on screen. Special Agent Dale Cooper is the soul of Twin Peaks. His dialogue and personality are so likable and hilarious, and he's one of my favorite introduction to a character ever. And the way he just speaks about the trees, when you think about, the first time you watch something for Lynch, you might think he's a cynic, the way he's just talking about pies and coffees and trees with so much love. You might think he's actually making fun of that, but it's not, and you will understand more into the show. And there is so much trust and love that he has that it's so beautiful. Kyle MacLachlan was really born to play him. No one would have ever done a better job than him. And why Dale Cooper actually works so well in the show is because you have such a bleak show like Twin Peaks. He is kind of like a reminder to the audience that absurdity and sincerity can coexist, that belief itself is an act of resistance. You watch the first 2 seasons comes Fire Walk with Me, and it takes place before Laura Palmer's death. It's a very depressing, and unlike the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks, where we have a balance between how sad but still hilarious of time. In Fire Walk with Me, there is no light and zero feeling of good can come around. Easily the darkest I've seen Lynch go, and Cheryl Lee absolutely broke me in this one. Almost every scene carries deep sorrow. Cheryl Lee plays Laura like a wounded angel, both eerie and beautiful, clearly showing us that her tragic end is coming. The original run of the show builds around a perfect idealized image of Laura as an image of everyone in town shares with us after her death. But this version of her appears often in the show and even a few times in the movie. It's an image many people recognize even if they haven't seen the show. Once that image is in place, the story becomes a small town American soap opera slowly torn apart by the trauma of her murder. A crack start to the show as a town dark side filled with greed, abuse, and impulsive cruelty begin to surface. What seemed ordinary starts to feel strange, and what was strange begins to feel normal, creating a dreamlike world shaped by grief and denial. The brilliance of this movie is that it doesn't look at the cracks in Laura's image and tears down the entire foundation. Lynch strips away the dreamy tone and easy answers of the show instead of presenting these events as a deeply empathetic dive into confusion, terror, and suffering. He delivers us a real, relentless barrage of image and moments that won't let us look away from Laura's pain, and he uses what we already know to make that pain even more unbearable. By the time her death finally comes, everything leading up to it has been so overwhelming that it almost feels like a relief for both of her and us. What was once the show's central tragedy is reimagined as something like a cruel form of mercy. And that idea is so sad and so heavy, makes this one of the most emotionally devastating films I've ever experienced. It's also a testament to Cheryl Lee's all-time great performance, so full of humanity and layered complexity in how Laura feels her pain and hides it behind carefully constructed performances. Even though her entire existence is steeped in agony, you still want to be with her. Maybe this time she will find a way out. Maybe it doesn't have to end like that. Cue The Return. With The Return, you have to learn to be patient and open-minded, and it can be a bit for some of the odd or maddening plot to fully cook, but just to put your face in Lynch and Frost. They do love to leave some things in the air to be interpretation of the viewer, which might piss some people off, but just roll with it. Embrace the mystery and weirdness of it all. I do prefer season 1 and 2, but I had a really good time with this season and I couldn't recommend this show higher enough. In this one, the cast got even stronger with new additions like Matthew Lillard, Naomi Watts, and Laura Dern, to name a few. I'll be honest when I say it took me a while to get into it, and some episodes felt like a chore to finish, but it was all worth it at the end, and I went into it not knowing anything, and I think that's a good way, not to go into it knowing what it's about. But yeah, it was all worth it because the last maybe like 7 episodes I had to finish in one setting. It was so good. I will never forget last 5 minutes in the last episode. I think it always haunt me. But at the end of Twin Peaks, I think a part of me why I find myself so transfixed by all the things Twin Peaks is the way it's captured life and existence. It's not only looking at this and love. It isn't only looking at love and happiness. Twin Peaks takes life and presents it for what it is. It's an absolute mist of so many different thoughts and feelings sometimes, that something that is seemingly impossible to fully digest or fully understand. It's confusing, unpredictable, upsetting, and at times rewarding. And aren't all these aspects of life? It's just being alive. We try our best to control the world around us, but the amount of control we have is so little. I feel like Twin Peaks recognizes and uses that. It runs through so many different aspects of existence. It has left audience scratching their heads for over 30 years, trying to interrupt exactly what it means, what it presents. To me, the answer to Twin Peaks has always been pretty simple. It's about life, it's about people, and it's about the evil that exists in the world. But you can make it whatever you want the show to be about. There's so much into that. There's so much you can think of it. You can think the show is about, like I said, about life, but you can also think it's about coffee and pies, and it's mostly about love too. How everyone has so much love for a specific thing, but they make them weird for us. But I don't know, like Nadine love for curtains, and of course Special Agent Dale Cooper love for coffee. And after finishing the show, I just want to say thank you for David Lynch for everything that he is giving us, for not just cinema but what he is giving the TV. Twin Peaks really did change TV forever, and I think this man has so much love for what he was doing. No one will ever do it like him. No one has tried and got it right, because people tried to mimic his style but they never to do what he did, because I think it really did came from such a special place, from a loving place. It was totally his, and that's what's so special about Lynch and with everything that he has put out. Again, thank you for David Lynch for everything, and one of the best TV shows I've ever watched in my life. If Twin Peaks has been in your watch list for a while, take this as your sign. Give it a chance. I think it's unlike anything that you'll ever watch, and it's really, really so much fun.